Hey everybody, week 10, we're screaming along here. We're closing in on the end of the semester. This week we're going to talk about investigation. You got a ton of work, I'm sorry that this happened, but I had to do this to make the semester work out properly and give you a chance for a draft. Um, so you've got the week 10 exam and then also your first draft on the Terry stops. And just so there's no confusion about that, what the idea of the first draft is, you give me a complete paper, and then I can give you direction as to where to go to develop the paper for better analysis. Um, you know, I'm not really looking for you to say that a Terry stop is any stop that's done under the authority of Terry versus Ohio, which says that a person can be stopped and detained by the police when there's a reasonable suspicion of criminal conduct occurring or about to occur and that person is somehow involved. Now, not really looking for that. I mean, I'm looking for a discussion of how this impacts liberties and whether or not the police can actually function without the Terry stop. If the police had to use a higher level of proof, meaning probable cause, before they could make a stop, how would that work out? What would that look like? So don't forget to look at the dissent in Terry. That's really important. And then the ABC News information. And when you look at New York City stops, think about the areas where crime is high. Think about the demographics. Um, think about the idea of, are we talking about how people are contacted? If you're not from New York is a whole lot different than California and how people talk to each other and how they relate. Um, and some of the discussion by the police there is, and the way they talk to people is not unusual for how things function there. So you got a lot to work with. I mean, you've really got to think about this not from how you would feel in that position, but what the expectations are there. So that being said, let's talk about the discussion board. We talked about the exclusionary rule, and I was hoping I would get more people to look at Hudson versus Michigan and look at alternatives to the exclusionary rule and discuss whether or not those um, were sufficient to keep the police from misconduct. And then look at Gant and Belton and see how the rule changed and officers then had to go and we're now working on a different sort of rules. So with that, those are the areas that I wanted you to look at. Now let's talk about investigation. Investigation detectives. First, many students think that they are going to graduate from Long Beach. They're going to go to the police academy. They'll graduate on Friday, party all weekend, walk into work on Monday, and the detective sergeant is going to hand them a stack of homicides to solve. That's not how it works. And rarely through some other situation, somebody may end up in investigation fairly quickly, but you're not going to go from the academy to investigation. You're going to end up, if you work for a local police department, in the patrol division, going to go through the patrol field training, and then will spend 4, 5, 6 years in patrol before you have a chance to go to investigation. And that means working graveyards and weekends and holidays and birthdays, yours and everybody else's in your family. Slugging around a patrol car for a while before you can prove yourself to the investigative personnel, meaning supervision and management, that you should come into investigation. So that's the first thing that I want people to understand. The second thing is that investigation is not you're in your office with the glass walls and somebody really cool looking, sitting next to you that you can flirt with. That's not how it works. Investigation is cubicles and desk work and reading cases, and there's a lot more autonomy. There's also an expectation of clearing cases. Cases are cleared a bunch of different ways. They can be cleared by an arrest, cleared/arrest. They can be cleared other, which means that the person admitted to the crime, or a person admitted to the crime, and couldn't be prosecuted for whatever reason. Maybe it was the statements were outside of Miranda. And here's an example of a case. Case was pending for several years, where a woman had been doing dishes next to her, the window of her house, over her sink, and some fool threw a brick through the window, a cinder block, hit her in the head, and knocked her out, almost killed her. Case went unsolved for years and years. Police later are working an indecent exposure case, and this guy gets arrested. And at the end of the interview about the indecent exposures, the detective says, well, outside of Miranda, we're not going to use this. Anything else you want to talk to us about? And he's thinking, well, maybe he'll admit to 2 or 3 more exposures that he can then clear as others. And then the guy tells him about throwing a brick through the window and hitting the woman in the head. In the words of my favorite actor, Homer Simpson, dough. So then what happens from there? Well, in the discussion, quick call to the DA, and they're able to put together a case on the guy that survived scrutiny. So, that's another way, cleared other. The suspect could be dead. In the 30 years that I worked, I had probably 10 people that from the time I identified them as suspects or arrested them and they went to trial, they died. Natural causes, some other gang beef, or suicide. That isn't unusual. That's not unusual at all. So the next thing in the reality of the investigative process is the fact that it's a ton of paperwork. And you get your stack of cases from your patrol sergeant, from your investigative sergeant, and then you have to read them, decide what can be worked, what might not be worked. The RAND Corporation did an interesting study on reactive investigations, and they suggested that patrol fill a form, and the form has indicia of whether or not a case can be solved, known as solvability factors. The solvability factors are checked off, and if a score of X, 10 is, I think, the number, then the case will be followed up on. Do we have a known suspect? That's a 10. Do we have a vehicle license plate? Well, that's a 5. Do we have witnesses? That's a 4. Can the witness ID? That's a 4. Things of that nature. Is there video? That could be a 3 or more, depending upon what the video shows you. Do we have video? Does it show the suspect's face well? And does it show a license plate on a getaway vehicle? So all of those factors can come into play also. So that was the RAND study, but much of the work done by detectives is just going through cases and looking for similarities. One thing that has come along in recent years is this idea of crime analysis, or an idea of crime analysis, but the concept of crime analysis. And that's the use of different computer programs to analyze crime data and do maybe some prediction. But the better thing, or the greater uh, value is the fact that you can narrow your suspect pool. So that's one of the things that happens with, or the crime analysis can do. So, with those ideas in mind, the book talks about behavioral evidence, and I'll leave that to the book, and then also the police prosecutor collaboration. It can be really good, but there's a lot of tension there because the cops can throw a really good case to the DA, and the DA um, believe they can't get a conviction and not file a case. And sometimes there's nefarious things going on where it's a friend of the DEA or one of the staff, or the case gets buried, or it's not a politically good case to proceed with. So you may see, or officers see that, and then they oftentimes get frustrated with the prosecutor. So the prosecutor and the cops don't necessarily have this tight relationship that people think of. This is kind of a concept that you discussed in your 100, your intro courses, Intro to Criminal Justice. But here you can see, or it's try to illustrate the fact that that's a fairly prominent issue. So that kind of gives us what we have going on this week. Try to make this a little bit short. You got a lot of work to do. Sorry about that, but good luck on the exam. It's the same style exam, multi-guess, and you have a study guide which will be available in a day or two. And then you can get started on that, and good luck on it. Hope you all do really good.